Okay, everybody, we'll call the meeting to order. We have agenda in front of you. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Councillor Tower. Seconded by Councillor Black. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Open to question period. Any questions from the audience? Okay, hearing none. Any councils gone through the agenda? Disclosures of interest? Deputy Mayor Aiken.
Yes, Your Worship. I'll be recusing myself for the BIA vote.
Okay, thank you. Any other declarations? No? Okay, move to item number 5, minutes. Regular council meeting October 15th. Moved by Deputy Mayor Aiken, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Special meeting of October 21st. Moved by Councillor Butcher, seconded by Councillor Evans. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. And special meeting of council November 4th on page 11. Moved by Councillor Tower, seconded by Councillor Evans. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. We have business arising from the minutes. Deputy Mayor Aiken, you'd like to speak to that?
Yes, Your Worship. First of all, I have a motion that I'll put on the table. I move that the Council of the Town of Sackville requests that the Board of the Sports Wall of Fame delay implementation of the restructuring plan for the Sports Wall of Fame approved at the October 2019 regular meeting of Council and reconsider options for space to accommodate the future increases in the number of honorees on the wall.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Aiken, seconded by Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Your Worship. I put this motion forward for a number of reasons. First of all, as with most, I've on council I've received considerable pushback, commentary on this, what we implemented last month, and none of it was positive. I was up to the rink on the weekend and did a little pacing off and measuring, and there's about as much room on the back wall of the mezzanine there as is currently devoted to the Sports Wall of Fame. So you could effectively double the size of it without making any changes in protocol. The current plaques, I think, has been pointed out, are unique. I know of nowhere else that does this sort of thing, and it's nice to keep something like that. And finally, to me, it represents a nice overlap of the sort of the arts community and the sports community in coming together to make these plaques. I'm introducing this motion not to rescind or change the view of the request of the board. I just want them to delay the implementation and give it some second thought. We have council representation on the board now, and I think they're more than capable of conveying our sentiments to the board. So for those reasons, I put forward this motion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Open for debate. Any questions, comments? Go to question. Oh, sorry, Councillor Black.
I wanted to say one thing really quickly about this issue, but other issues that have arisen in Sackville. I think it should be noted that as of today, staff have received 2 direct emails from citizens concerning the Sports Wall of Fame, and both of them were from the same person. I can't speak for the rest of council, but for myself, I've had 3 in total through this whole process of the Sports Wall of Fame coverage. If you look around the internet, you can see many, many comments about this issue from people in Sackville and beyond. I want to strongly urge citizens of our wonderful community to please reach out to the people who know about what's going on in Sackville. The phone numbers for Town Hall and email addresses for the various departments are easy to access, and all the councillors and the mayor have their emails on our website as well. If you have a question or a concern about something going on in town, whether good or bad, get the right information directly from the source. Also, the idea or comment that you may have will immediately get into the hands of people that can do something about it. Please don't let yourself fall into the swampy mire of news blogs, improperly moderated social media sites, or non-town affiliated Facebook pages that thrive on conjecture, misinformation, populist opinion, and falsehoods. Get your voice heard by the people who can make a difference, your elected officials, and competent town staff. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Michaud, I think you were first.
I believe we're deliberating the motion. I'm not sure about protocol, Your Worship, but I don't think statements of that, this isn't statement time, this is time to deliberate the motion. I want to thank the Deputy Mayor for bringing this forward. I've heard from several people, and I take to heart anything that is read online, and I take it with a grain of salt. And I'll be happy to support the Deputy Mayor's motion. Thank you.
Councillor O'Neill, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I certainly will support the motion as well. And I guess they talk about their Facebooks and emails and so on, but I'm one of the ones on the 50-plus aerobics, and I'm certainly met with a lot of controversy on this as I've been up at the rink, and they are from people that know Sackville, they know the people that are on the wall, and are pleased with what they're seeing, have seen up there so far. So anyway, they've encouraged me to just ask that we take another look at things and hope that we can continue in the way we're going.
Councillor Evans?
Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything because I'm happy to support the motion too, but Councillor Black made a point which I heartily concur with. I think we have to be really careful is that everybody, people who were for and against the decision, want to do what they think is best. We all want to honor the Sports Wall of Fame honorees. We're only disagreeing about how best to do that. So let's not impugn the motives of people. That's the concern, is that when you disagree, that's okay. It's not okay to be disagreeable. So I think it's entirely appropriate to debate this, to talk about it now, because this is what we're doing. I don't have a problem with anything you said, and I don't have a problem with what Councillor Black said. But let's be civil, and let's try to get it right. And that's why I'm in favor of Deputy Mayor's motion.
Councillor Tower, please.
Thank you, Worship. I am also in favor of this motion. I also know that the intent was not to take these down. There was no mandate behind their thought patterns. They're trying to find the best way possible. And if nothing else, this has really brought the conversation forward so we get more input and possibly much better ways of doing it. I don't like to see these beautiful art pictures taken down. It's our sports history where we're honoring them, and I think we should keep them there as best we can. I like some of the possible changes that were being thought of, but I also like the idea if we can keep this tradition going, then we have to look outside the box and maybe create another wall, since there is talk about dividing the room off and putting a wall up to block off the other room. So maybe that would also add to it. But that's a conversation, but I am fully in favor of leaving the pictures where they are.
Thank you, Councillor Tower. Any other comments? Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Southeast Regional Service Commission, I'll start with that. There's not a lot to speak about in terms of the meeting this month was about the budget. Much of the budget was as we discussed and as Council had seen. There was a couple of minor adjustments to a couple of areas, which was illustrative that people were paying attention to the details. RDMO has the Regional Destination Marketing Organization. We had quite a discussion over that. The idea was that for it to work, of course, there was to be a regional levy. And the provincial legislation has provided municipal level levies, which then means everybody has to put a levy together, collect it, all have the same sort of rates, et cetera. So the result was that Moncton is now put in a levy. and Moncton, maybe perhaps Dieppe has as well, but hardly anybody else has. So at this point, we decided not to fund for the following year. There was a little bit of money left right now, because nothing's going to work unless the province changes that structure. So we did not fund the full operational budget of the RDMO, hoping that the province will allow that structure to come through, and there's some internal suggestions over how we might do that. Not much else. Some discussion over the potential that there is some movement on plastic bags. The discussion was that the group that has the capacity to do it may come from out of the province, and it didn't make a whole lot of sense for it to be going to something like that when there is capacity within the waste management Eco360s themselves. So that's still to be resolved. So it was a side element of the budget. But in essence, we mostly focused on the budget and passed it with a couple of minor changes, which actually lowered the budget a minor amount from what you had seen. Deputy Mayor, anything to add to that? Okay. So that's all I have for regional service at this point. Now we move to planning. Oh, sorry, just a moment. Start with Councillor Tower.
Thank you. Just to follow up on the plastic bags, I've had a conversation, well, actually a couple of them, because there's a company in Halifax that has been, I've been told, trying to get these plastic bags out of the Eco360, and they want them not only to ship them down, but they want them to pay for the plastic bags also. And if this is really taking up a storage space, and if we're gonna help out in the cleaning up of these type of things, I think that if that is the case, that maybe they should get off their butt ends and agree to ship them out to Halifax to have them taken care of. If you can check on that for me.
I don't know about that alternative, but what was being said was we have the plastic bags, and if somebody's going to do that, they should do it here as opposed to sending it off to other sources. So I'm not sure that they were related.
Okay.
Because that was their idea was, well, let's see if they have that capacity. They should come here because we've got the bags. So, and then they built the capacity there in Moncton as well. So that was the tone of our discussion, but I will look into the other
Okay.
idea as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Michaud.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess it refers back to solid waste, and I know that there's been trying to get some information in regards to diversion and recycling, and when I spotted the article in regards to the issue that they were having with the plastic bags and trying to find a place to get them recycled, it was the first I had heard about it. And again, is there some way that we as a council can be getting that information in regards to the diversion, what the rate's been? Are they having issues finding a marketplace for the recyclables, such as the bags, on a more readily basis? You know, reading about it as opposed to Eco360 reporting it, I would sooner hear it kind of firsthand as opposed to reading something about it. And I'm just kind of wondering if there's a way that we can get our hands on that information so that we get a better idea of how we're doing on that aspect.
Okay, I will make a personal commitment that I'm trying to meet Roland this week. And I will make that request clear that we would like him to come and explain to us where that's at, okay? Just make a note of that. Roland is the director of Eco360. Okay, thank you. Councillor Evans.
Yeah, I thought that this item has to do with the EPR, the Extended Producer Responsibility Initiative that provincial government mandated through Recycle New Brunswick mid-month last month, whereby the producers are responsible for getting rid of it. Because right now, we put it in the recyclable garbage, and Eco360 stockpiles it, but there's no market for it. And what I really like about this initiative, and something I learned about at UMNB, is that the producers are responsible for this stuff. And if there's no market for it, then they'll have to deal with it at their expense. And one of the things that the president of UMNB said is that because the price of plastics is set nationally, we're already paying for it. The producers have to deal with this in 5 other provinces. And so now they will have to deal with this. And if it's prohibitive, then maybe they'll come up with an alternative other than plastic. So there's a real big upside here and virtually no downside for taxpayers. So if that's the initiative, then it's great. It's no longer our problem. It will be dealt with the market.
I must admit, it was a little confusing because they were talking about being able to break the plastic bags into their constituent original parts. That's what they were talking about in terms of the data. Deputy Mayor, do you?
Yes, thank you, Worship. In May, I think it was, Dwayne and I were at a session on this. Part of it was this extended producer responsibility. And in the presentation, they pointed out there were several different models for doing this. And the province has chosen to use the British Columbia model, I believe, which we were told at the Service Commission meeting that it was, I've never had Baroque music for a comment before. The BC model was potentially the worst of the 3 or 4 they presented. And it could be very bad or it could be very good depending on how it's handled. So something that's going to have to be kept watch on.
Okay. Councillor Tarr?
Thank you. Just to follow up on Councillor Michel's one there, when Western Albert Solid Waste was in existence and the late, great Bill Slater was running it, we used to get a report on a regular basis. Supposedly, according to the Minister of Local Government back then, said he was going to maintain all the different reports that were out there from Western Albert so that they could bring them into existence if required. So maybe you can have Roland go look for those reports and basically copy it, but put the less active information in.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask Mr. Acton, you have some of this data, or you've seen some of this data recently?
Sure. Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I have looked into this. I am working with Jenna Alderson with the Commission. I have worked with the clerk to get the old reports that you're speaking of. Those reports, according to the information I'm getting from Jenna, don't exist in that format, but there are reports that she can get us, and I'm working on trying to get them to be able to distribute them to council. So it is something that I am working on, and hopefully Jenna will get back to me soon with that information and could bring that forward. We do get some of that information in our monthly Solid Waste Technical Review Committee, and I'm hoping that she can use that information and I could forward that on to council.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so we will now turn to planning. Ms. Bickford, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll quickly go through my regular monthly staff report, and then we'll move into a public hearing that's scheduled for tonight. So in the month of October, 5 permits were issued. This brings our year-to-date total to 58 permits at a total construction value of $5.9 million. This time last year, we had 62 permits with a construction value of $23 million. During the month of October, the Planning Review and Adjustment Committee did review 2 applications by the town of Sackville, or for the town of Sackville. The first one being the proposed amendments to the municipal plan, Bylaw 243B, as well as the proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw, which is 244I. And this is the proposal that'll be on tonight for the public hearing by J.N. Lafford Realty for the proposed changes to incorporate senior living community. The Planning Review Committee are recommending these particular bylaw changes to council. As well, they also reviewed the proposed bylaw for the subdivision in town, and they too recommended that the proposed draft presented to them. Other projects that we worked on included the detailed versions that you don't quite see behind the scenes of the subdivision bylaw process, the preparation of reports, as well as presenting to the Planning Review Committee and setting out the process. Same goes as far as the J.N. Lafford proposal as well. There's a number of documents that need to be prepared, and as well as advertisements that need to be prepared for those particular items. Later this evening, there will be a proposed first reading of the subdivision bylaw that'll come forward after the public hearing. The other item that I did want to highlight was that I did attend the New Brunswick Planners annual general meeting and an associated workshop that went along with that. And the GIS staff are also working on preparing those background statistics that will be incorporated for flood limit scenarios in town, and us moving forward with presenting something on to council in an upcoming meeting on that particular item. So if there's any questions.
Questions on the report? Questions on the planning report before we move to another element of planning? Any timetable on the flood mapping?
My understanding is they're down to devoting a couple hours to running the statistics, and then from there I'll prepare a report which will get generated to council highlighting those items, and then there will be a suggestion within that report as to, or as well as an action as to how council should proceed if they want to proceed or otherwise. So I'm hoping the upcoming month I would have something prepared for that, but
Thank you.
hoping, I said hoping.
No other questions on the planning report? Okay. Move to,
Okay, so tonight is the public hearing. If Mike, I can just get you to switch over. So tonight is the public hearing for the J.N. Lafford Realty proposal for at the end of Wright Street and Fawcett Street. And this is a proposed redesignation of the property, or one of the properties, as well as rezoning of properties. And we'll continue on and we'll see a little bit more. So these are the two properties that are in question. The one at the end of Wright Street being the property that's proposed for the redesignation under the municipal plan, and both properties would be affected through a rezoning process. So the proposal itself is to create a single-level multi-unit housing development, as well as the incorporation of a senior nursing complex in the overall development of the property. Under the municipal plan, currently we have the future land use map, which divides the town into various designations. The gray areas being the highway commercial designation, the purple ones being the urban residential, so those are the serviced residential sections of town. And the green that you see on the map would be our rural residential, those ones that aren't capable of being fully serviced by municipal services. The black outlined just identifies the two particular properties that we are talking about, but you'll see the red portion that's identified at the end of Wright Street is the property that's under a proposed redesignation change. So rather than keep that portion as highway commercial, in order for this particular development proposal to go forward, the applicants are requesting to change that to urban residential as well. So some policies that are within the plan, I wanted to highlight first that highway commercial designation does not support residential development, which is why the applicant is proposing to change the designation on that portion of the property. There are a number of policies that are applicable to this particular one, including residential designations under the urban residential. This is to designate sufficient land within the town to accommodate residential development in the present and in the future. And it's based on what areas are currently able to be serviced in the town. So of course, this particular property is capable of being serviced within that area. As well, there's policies within the plan that discuss encouraging a wide range of housing options within the town, and they specifically call out medium density and high density development as some of those options. And another particular policy that I've drawn on is the references to our future road configuration maps. This is adopted as part of our boundary and service, and the purpose of this map being incorporated into the plan was to look at some of these important future road network connections that should be maintained within the town to ensure that safety, emergency response, secondary access points are all incorporated. And to make sure that these items are, that the road network is not jeopardized by future development. So within the zoning bylaw, I've highlighted the two properties again in red. So the highway commercial portion of the property would be looking, that's outlined in red, would be looking at moving from highway commercial to R3 as part of this proposal. The remainder of the property would continue on as highway commercial. And then the property at the end of Fawcett Street is being proposed to move from an R1 zone to an R2. So this would accommodate that medium density, so 1 to 6 units per lot. And then the final component to this particular amendment is the incorporation of text amendment to the R3 zone, which would add senior nursing home complex to the R3 zone. As it currently stands within the bylaw right now, it's only incorporated within the institutional zone. This would allow for that more accommodation for private sector versus government-run operations. This is the proposed conceptual plans. So you'll see Wright Street would be proposed to connect onto Hessler Drive, as Fawcett is as well. The key components to this being highway commercial would be on the lower portion of Wright Street, moving into a multi-unit, so higher density. That would be your more than 6 units on that one particular property. Then the nursing home, and then back to higher density on the end. The bright purple being that property at the end of Fawcett, which would move into, or is proposed to move into an R2 zone to accommodate those other lots. This plan is shown again just to remind everybody as a conceptual. It's not to be used to count units, because a lot of that will be determined should it advance through rezoning and where the actual road network gets actually finalized. This is a conceptual plan next to our proposed future roadmap, which I was talking about in the town. I've highlighted the roads in question on that lower map just to show you that this is consistent with what's within the municipal plan now as to where we're proposing to have these road networks go along. Just a couple images. This is the property at the end of Fawcett looking back towards Hessler. And this just kind of gives you the view back towards Main Street along Wright Street. So there is a portion, you'll see kind of the Maritime Conference Building right on the left, and then it continues on down to the coastal inns. So we're pretty much at the max of what the public road system is approved for at this point. This is at the end of Fawcett Street looking back towards Hessler. And this road that you see here is the intersection of Ridgewood and where the two proposed exits would kind of come out. So Fawcett being the one closest to the screen, and the one further away would be approximately where Hessler and Wright Street would connect. So as I mentioned earlier, the Southeast Planning Review and Adjustment Committee did review this one, and they are required under the Community Planning Act before council adopts any amendment to the bylaw of this nature to provide their views to council. They have reviewed it, and they are recommending both the redesignation and the rezoning, as well as the inclusion of the senior nursing home complex to the R3 zone. Again, under the Community Planning Act, council is required to hold a public hearing for rezoning to give the public the opportunity to speak for or against a proposal before proceeding to the next steps of consideration of the amendment or the amendments. Staff did receive one written comment today on it, and I have circulated that to council today, but I will just kind of highlight the comments just so that everybody is aware. Essentially, they referenced that they had no objection to the rezoning itself, but did request that consideration be given to the implementation of traffic calming measures on the throughways as those roads connect on to Hessler, as well as they were also suggesting some encouraging the inclusion of active transportation routes in the area, and they called out pedestrian trails as well. So that concludes my portion of it, and I will turn it back over to the mayor.
Okay. So first, any questions or comments from council? This is a public hearing, but if you have a question, Ms. Bickford could ask. Then, if there are none, then we also call for anybody from the audience who wishes to comment on this is your, come up to the mic, please.
I'm Ross Thomas, an unemployed family doctor in town. And I think it's a good idea. I would support the motion. So I want to speak to that a little bit because I would see in my practice when I was working a lot of people, particularly in need of an assisted living type of accommodation. I think that's part of your plan. Yeah, and who are not doing well in their own homes for multiple reasons, requiring a lot of support, a lot of difficult families to keep them there. And I think they do well in an assisted living place, and otherwise they have to go to Moncton or beyond or Amherst. So I think that's a good idea. I think the ideas of, as you know, I'm going to support active transportation, having the ability to walk to places. This is going to create a throughway from I think the Beale and Inch subdivision above that down to the highway commercial area. So there's going to be people wanting to go there, and there are no sidewalks. So I think you want to consider that. And I think the other thing I'd just like to raise is the issue of subsidized housing. If that's, when this eventually comes to fruition, if that might not be considered. Unfortunately, generally, assisted living places are private pay. And are beyond the means of many people who are on low income. So I think sometimes in our, a lot of the housing that's gone on here, which is, I think, very nice, but doesn't necessarily cater to those people who are on, seniors who are on fixed incomes. And I think as a society, we should be looking at trying to achieve a little bit of equality. I think that's just better for everybody. Not that everyone's going to be equal, but at least looking after the people in our family, in our community who aren't as well to do. So that's all I have to say. But I think it's a great idea, and I think assisted living in particular, I know is that sort of phase 2 of your project? Yeah. I think it should be phase 1, but you're
Thank you, Dr. Thomas. Any other comments on the concepts?
I think my question is more of a clarification, as in the last meeting as well. I have no problem with the rezoning or whatever up there. I think it's a good project. It's something that's needed. But is there any way that it can be done without having to change the R3 definition for the entire municipality, or is that what has to be done? Is there any way just for the project to go ahead in that area and not affect the rest of the town? Or is that part of this hearing? Like, I don't know the definition changes at part of the planning meeting.
Ms. Bickford, please.
Yeah, so essentially when we lay out zoning, we lay it out so that anybody who has that particular zoned property is able to do a certain listed uses within that. You don't tend to do zoning around giving a use that's not permitted in that zone to one particular individual. It's either encouraged to allow everybody that would own that zone and not be selective in individuals.
But even though you don't encourage it, is it possible to do a one-off?
My professional opinion is no. It's not. You would be setting yourself up for future court cases on discrimination and numerous other issues surrounding what we are allowed to do under land use control.
So is there any other land use zoning that project could go ahead other than R3?
At present time, the only one it's listed under is institutional. So one of the issues that we have with the institutional zone is that, generally speaking, that's for government properties, government-run, non-for-profit, those type of items, and doesn't really factor in that private sector. So this is kind of a manner of looking at that particular use, saying it's very similar to a higher density development. It's housing a larger density of people within one unit, and that would be the argument for why it would be included within the R3.
Are there any other clusters around town that are zoned R3? Like, I don't know the zoning of the properties. Are we setting ourselves up for this type of development in other areas of town once it's changed to R3?
There are properties that are zoned R3 in town. So whether there would be the interest from a developer to do that, that would be up to them. Again, you know, market will kind of determine some of that aspect that there's only.
I guess this comes down to whether people say not in my backyard sort of thing. Like, for me, I live on the other side of town, it's fine for you to do it there, I think it's needed. So in your professional opinion, you can't do a one-off variance, but legally, can it be done?
Well, that would be this.
Well, we're not going to give you legal advice, but my understanding of the planning law would be that it would be taken to court, and you wouldn't really be able to say, well, I'm going to only do it for that owner in that particular circumstances, and we can't justify not doing it somewhere else. So
there's no other way of doing it other than the R3 amendment?
In my opinion, this is the best method to do it.
So it's
That's your opinion, is the best method, so is there another method that's not necessarily the best?
I think this is interesting that it's not institutional. Most of these developments would have been institutional in the past. What we now have is a private sector who's looking to provide a set of residential options that we don't have coming from the private sector. And so now we are looking at how the planning will deal with that. So each of those, any other ones that come forward, will have to go through the same process, and we'll have to have public presentations and consideration by council and consideration by PRAC and all of that. So it may be setting a new measure, but it may well be something that profits the community, being able to deliver a sector of housing that we haven't been able to deliver so far.
Against the concept, I just, down the road, I don't know where the R3s are in town, so I don't know if, say, the street over from me that goes back to the marsh, is that all R3? I don't know the zoning, so there may be people who say, well, that's fine, we'll put it out Wright Avenue, but, you know, we don't want it down by wherever, somewhere else. I just wondered whether we're setting ourselves up for something we haven't fully looked at.
Well, if that happens, it will go through the same process, and we'll have open public
Not quite.
hearings,
If you've
and
already
council will
changed the
look at it.
R3 definition, you won't have to go through the process. It'll be an accepted use if you change the R3. So it'll be a subdivision request.
If it
but there'll
meets
be
all
no-
the criteria.
There'll be no zoning request.
Councilor Finney.
I was just going to say, as a matter of fact, I understand Mr. Lane's question. The thing is that by changing everything to R3, then that means we're opening up for everything. What's the problem of just designating that property to R3, which he's making a request? And whoever comes in the future with a development and asking to change to R3 in whatever area, why couldn't that be done? And then we'd go through the same process. But why does it have to be all changed to R3?
That's, the reply was that if you have to change the zoning definition, the zoning bylaw definition, in order to get it in, you can't do spot zoning that would then open the door to court cases. Am I misinterpreting your words?
No, I mean, again, essentially what it is you're looking at the particular uses that you've put in the R3 zone. You're making a determination whether you would permit that type of use in that zone or not. You can't individually say, well, because they're both zoned the same thing, that this particular request has to go through a rezoning if it's a permitted use. So by permitting it, yes, anybody in an R3 zone will be allowed to do that use in the zone. Whether everybody will do it, quite often people have a property that's zoned R3, but they may not build apartments on it. They could build a single-family home on it as well. You're, again, allowed to do whatever use is listed in there. It doesn't mean that everybody is going to go out and build every item that's on that list of permitted uses. It's just throwing options into that particular zone.
Yourself up to something that we may not want in the future, that's all. So.
Councillor Evans, please.
Yeah, I just want to say that this talk about not in my backyard and opening yourself up to stuff, we're talking about assisted living, not a slaughterhouse or something that's polluting. It will become an approved use for R3. I don't know how much undeveloped R3 we have, but the fact that somebody might build an assisted living house in a place that's already designated multi-unit dwellings is hardly a problem in my mind. The idea that we're opening ourselves up to some kind of problem, that fear escapes me.
Okay. Any other comments from audience on the presentation? Okay, no hearing, none. So, Ms. Bickford, you have another topic.
The other item that is on the agenda for tonight would be the proposed first reading of the subdivision bylaw.
Deputy Mayor, I believe you're going to.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move the council give first reading in name only to bylaw number 270, Town of Sackville subdivision bylaw.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Aiken. Seconded by Councillor Evans. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Ms. Bickford, that's good for you? Okay, thank you. So we'll move to 8A, Mayor's Report. Council has a list of things in the last little while, and I wish to, I'll just run through some of them and speak about more depth in some. No media contact whatsoever last week. We did raise the poppy flag, Remembrance Day ceremonies at the Legion Supper for first responders, also at the firefighter supper for their members. Made contact at DTI about concerns about the watershed and the highway interface there. The RCMP municipal contracts, the CAO, treasurer and myself spent a day with in Fredericton going through some elements of services and questions of costs coming up. Of course, the art wall and the Ernie Sears plaque unveiling. I also have a meeting, I attended the community meeting at the MLA, and several other of you were there, I saw, as she explained where she was at and some of the things on her agenda. A letter to the NB Agriculture Minister. I provided a letter that was in support of keeping the agricultural office, sub-office that is in town and has been there for 40 years. The meeting of the MLA and the Chignecto Soil and Crop Association with the minister, that letter was handed to him in support of their meeting to fight for the same thing. The response, we haven't got a formal response to the letter as yet, but it appears that we may have lost that, although there is still some movement to try to find a rent-free office that could be used in Sackville. Otherwise, agriculture's 40-year presence here in town is leaving. Community-supported education. I did meet with the principals and the new director of that effort. That was a very interesting session. Had yard sale signage concerns that had come up a couple of times, and I met with one of the individuals involved, and we talked through what some of the options might be if they wish to seek a change. So they're considering whether they would like to see a change or not. We did send an inquiry over to the Refugee Coalition here in town from somebody who was looking for some support. Mayor's Climate Roundtable, we had our second meeting in this room recently and discussed the nature of what the roundtable would do, because we were focusing on a small portion of the roundtable hearing opening a day for formal presentations from people and organizations in town. So we agreed to the structure, and we're kind of trying to keep a panel down to a reasonable number because everybody wants to participate. So We're in the middle of paring it down to a panel and also setting the final place and time. So we should have that fairly soon now. Tantramar Dike study inquiries to DTI, Senator Olson and the MP's office. Late today, the MP's office indicated that they were not getting anything accurate. However, the rumor was that the contract would be signed and announced by the end of November. So we shall wait and see whether that takes place. There is a volunteer who's contacted me on developing a pilot for apartments and recycling waste. And that is the meeting I'm trying to meet with Roland and that individual and potential landlord who is potentially interested in this. So we'll let you know if that does happen or not. You can cross off the climate change and education seminar that was supposed to happen today, but people coming from Toronto couldn't make it, so that did not happen. So you can strike that. Deputy Mayor set up a meeting on equalization and some other, we took that opportunity with the Green Party caucus here to discuss other Sackville concerns, just so they were clear about some of our local government questions that we would like them to consider. York Street Childcare made some inquiries because they're looking for expansion and other opportunities. NB Student Association, I met them yesterday. They, for the first time, Sackville has been included. The provincial organization of students has offered, has long held an advocacy role for students for the province, and they have focused mostly on provincial government departments. In the last couple of years, they've focused on the host communities, but only the large ones, to get to see whether the cities would go with them. This is the first year that Sackville, as a host of one of the major universities, was included in the New Brunswick Student Advocacy Program. So I did meet them. We had a very good chat about what their proposals were, and mostly they were about attracting more international students and reasonable costs for them, financial aid for everybody, and sorry, I forget the third item, which was actually, I've got it here. I will leave this with you in council chambers. Indigenization, sorry, I shouldn't have forgotten that one. So it was that the education system needs to have more indigenization, but so too does the institutions of governance in the province. So that were the three pitches they were making. I indicated that good luck. We couldn't do a whole lot about that. However, we would love to see that if there's an opportunity for international students that come to our town, and that there should be a path for them to be able to try to stay if they have the skills and abilities and desire to do so. And right now, there is no such thing. So they agreed that that would be a good idea, but weren't really sure how that should move ahead. I did get a tour of Fairfield Road, some discussion over its state of affairs, and some of you saw some follow-up from that from some of the people there. And the CAO recruitment activities, which we are underway with right now, and we'll have an update for you probably later this week from the Personnel Committee. The other is, I would like to note that the Tantramar Titans made it 5 in a row provincial championships, and I think that is an extraordinary accomplishment. I think we should consider whether there is anything the town should do to recognize that extraordinary accomplishment. And to kick that off, of course, there's very little time between sports. A lot of that team is now in the basketball team or on the soccer team or on the hockey team, and they're off, and they're hard to get them all together again. But I do think that we should consider that. And as a short term, I would suggest that I would write a letter on behalf of council to the Titans and particularly to the coach about acknowledging their achievements and the models they are setting for people in this town, and that they've made us all very proud. So if you're okay with that, I will draft that letter and send it off very quickly. Hear, hear. Thank you. So finally, I want to talk a few minutes while I have the podium about some apologies I feel I need to make. And I would like to speak for a couple of minutes on this and explain why that's necessary. I don't want to be seen here as suggesting that free speech is something I'm looking at. Everybody has the right to free speech. It's a fundamental part of our democracy. And the issue with it is that it doesn't have to be factual. That's the beauty of free speech, but it's also one of the problems with free speech, that free speech does not require evidence and does not require facts. And we live with that. And typically, prior to social media, that input was kind of moderated by a free press and by a respect for that office holders are trying to strive for the best interests of the community, and also personal responsibility, that people didn't want to be saying stuff in public that would be wrong. Well, social media has changed that, and it's created as Councillor Black made it creates different avenues for all this information to go and get out. And what the issue was for me is that I totally believe in free speech, and that I have always treated everybody as if that's what they're doing. But the problem becomes when people begin to say that they're a voice for others, that they are speaking for others. And at that point, I think they have a different obligation to the community to meet. But the problem is that I've never done that. I've never recognized that, and I've never acted on that. And I think I want to just indicate a couple of reasons why, and apologize to some of the people that have been hurt by me not acting on this. I'll give you a couple of examples here. Some time ago, there was a letter to the Tribune that claimed the town had spent over $660,000 on land for the retention pond. It also alleged the town was misleading its citizens and speculated a final cost was going to be over $1 million. Despite that we did provide the facts that only $330,000 was in fact spent, we didn't, and I purposely chose that we would not talk about the parcels that we didn't take. And a notable part of what we chose to do was one parcel, which was offered to us at 5 times the value of the property, and which the owner didn't reveal, had an environmental flag on it for probable contamination, we chose to not purchase. And despite us all knowing that, I said that no, we shouldn't talk about the individuals, because that would be embarrassing, and that we should not expose what actually was gone beyond in this area. And also with the naivety that people would not want to be seen speaking ill about land costs and contamination, et cetera. So I apologize. I think that me keeping those facts close and expecting that individuals would correct themselves was wrong, and nothing ever did happen about some of the allegations made around that original letter. And I apologize to the community. I should have been as transparent with those topics as we are with all the other topics. And unfortunately, I was not. I'd also like to know another letter to the editor arose following a citizen's claim that staff had rudely interrupted a discussion between 2 residents and a consultant in the town hall. That letter claimed staff misbehavior was common and it needed to stop. The review of the incident separately interviewed the 4 parties involved. The individual testimonies were then compared to security tape of the actual interactions in the hall. The tape showed a quiet, private, respectful conversation among the 4. Nothing remotely close to what was publicly alleged, and the only possible conclusion was that this was fabricated. Despite the severity of the allegations that came from that fabricated event, we again chose to not convey the results to anybody but those who were completely and utterly involved in that particular item. I was again certain anyone in this situation, when they saw that, would have wanted to make amends to that. I was wrong again. There's been no recounting of the allegations, no apologies, no letter to the editor to correct it. So again, my fault. Unfortunately, Mr. Burke is not here, but my apologies to Mr. Burke in particular, who had to go through that, but also to the community who should have known that that was fabricated and false. 3, an email was sent directly to council alleging that DTI had a detailed alternative for flooding in town that was far cheaper and more effective than the town's plans. The authors alleged that staff and consultants had colluded to avoid that plan simply to drive up fees paid by the town. Now, those are very, very serious allegations made in public and to us. And so I quickly arranged a meeting with the Deputy Minister of DTI. I briefed all of you after this, and you were aware of what came back. She brought in 4 senior staff from all sectors of DTI, and we had a very long discussion over the plans and what the town had encountered and how it had been unable to fulfill the long-term plan. And she noted that DTI had the fund. If they had the funds, they would have given them to them right away because they understood the full project was the best possible alternative to do. I also asked the senior Dykes section staff to go through the email that we had received and for him to explain to me what it meant. He was simply astounded by what was in the claims. He has said nothing had ever been heard in his department that said anything close to that. Instead, he said, let me make it clear. The relationship between our group, the town, and its consultants is excellent. Open, constant communications, and positive. He also followed up to say he individually spoke to everybody in his section, and not a single person could recall ever saying anything like what was in that mail to us. In other words, another complete and utter fabrication. There is no alternative at DTI. It does not exist and never has. This one I was a little more difficult dealing with because I thought there had been some slanderous statements made about some individuals. But the advice was, you know what? That's tough. The town can't do anything. Any individual who feels they were libeled or slandered has to go to court by themselves. It's their responsibility. And guess what? In the real world now, people get away with saying stuff like this because it's hard to protect themselves. So again, to the staff and consultants, I apologize for not more directly responding to these falsehoods and to putting your reputations on the line as I have. And to the community, which I know has continued to be fed this alternative falsehood, just be assured there is no such plan, no matter how often someone might say there is. There is not. There are a few other troubling statements and actions that I also let slide, and I'm not going to go through those here. But I want to say that this situation and what happened rests with me. I need to leave behind my belief that self-appointed spokespeople will take personal responsibility and rectify falsehoods. Fabricated events will be withdrawn. Unfounded allegations won't be made, and undeclared conflicts will be acknowledged. I've tried that for 3 years, and it hasn't worked. So I apologize for being naive and for not acting. I apologize to staff, I apologize to council, and I apologize to the community. And in the short time left in this mandate, I will be firmer and stronger on these items. Thank you. That's the end of the mayor's report. CAO report, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The CAO report is on page 27 in the reports, and the department reports contain another and demonstrate another busy month of a lot of activity going on in terms of various programs and services, and just starting or highlighting the finance area, which is certainly a very significant area of activity right now with the coming on in the last quarter of our 2019 budget. But the good news is that everything is on target from a 2019 perspective, so we'll keep an eye on that for the balance of the year. I think people know now that the 2020 budget is process is underway, and we've got a number of meetings scheduled in the near future. In the meantime, a lot of work continues and various projects being finished up and worked on before at least the public works and facility crews focus on a winter season ahead of them. There's a number of motions that are planned for tonight, one in particular with respect to the Lawrence Street, which Phase 2, where there are small balance of funds left over. In that, where we were able to complete a portion of complete the intended project within the budget, but it still allows council the option to consider doing further work that'll address the longer-term plan towards the Phase 3 project in the Orange Street area. And this would take place while we're still awaiting further word on our application that the town has into the feds and the province. So that's coming up. Also, just want to mention that you'll also note from the reports that the annual tree lighting program, Bill Johnson Park, is on for December 6th, as well as the annual Parade of Lights scheduled for the 7th of December as well. So more details in the departmental reports, but if there's any questions that council has, certainly look to address them.
Questions on CAO report, or leave them for individual reports from programs? No questions? Hearing none. We'll move on to finance and admin. Deputy Mayor Aiken, please.
Thank you, Worship. I'll start with the bills and payroll motion. I move the council accept the bills and payroll for the month of October 2019 as follows. General Government, $623,369.80. General Capital, $262,072.22. Utility Government, $60,922.18. Utility Capital, $4,057.04. And salaries, $287,167.16.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Aiken, seconded by Councillor Tower. Question? All those in, oops, Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, just wondering, the policing bylaw, I see where there's overtime for the, I think, would it be the bylaw officer for $440? I just wondered what that might be.
Mr. Beal?
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor O'Neill. That was worked in September during Fall Fair weekend. During Fall Fair weekend, we had we were down one student, and we had worked extra hours during Fall Fair weekend. It gets reported in the October one based on pay periods and timing, of course. But that was September work, but it was paid in October.
Thank you.
Okay. Question? Question. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Are you doing the report?
Thank you, Worship. The report appears on page 30 of the package. Now, highlight a few things from it. Financial statements are included to the end of October 2019. With 2 months remaining in the year, we're continuing to be on target overall for budgets within general and utility operating budgets as well as capital budgets. A more detailed review prior to the December council meeting will be done in order to recommend transfers to and from the reserve funds for the fiscal year. The 2020 budget process has begun with the first meeting held on October 21st. That meeting saw several presentations surrounding what is felt should be included in future budgets moving forward. Staff have been working since then to put together a first draft of operating and capital budgets that will be presented to council on November 18th. Water bills for the period of July 1st to September 30th were read on October 1st. The bills went out October 16th and have a due date of November 18th, 2019. June 2019 shut-off notices were issued to 130 accounts with a total value of $69,299.26. As of October 31st, we have collected $58,895.91, or 85% of the total. Lawrence Street Phase 1 has had its final claim submitted to the province in early November after having paid invoices relating to St. James and Bennett Street reconstructions. We now wait for a review and final payment for the Phase 2 funding, or Phase 1 funding. Under Lawrence Street Phase 2, we have submitted and received a total of $1,636,120 of the total eligible funding of $2,175,291. There remains outstanding bills to be paid, but after paying these, we have a total available budget remaining for Lawrence Street Phase 2 of approximately $210,000 at 100% municipal, provincial, federal funding plus HST. All funding for this, including holdbacks, must be completed by March 31st, 2020. 2019 dog tags remain available in Town Hall. Proof of rabies examinations must be provided at the time of purchase of the tag. 2020 dog tags will be sold on December 1st, 2019. And attached to this report are the bylaw enforcement and animal control statistics for October. That's the report, Your Worship.
Questions on the report? Hearing none. And you have your one motion. That is it. Thank you. Move to tourism business development. Councillor Michaud, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report for council appears in the package on page 38, and I'll just touch on a few highlights that the Manager of Tourism and Business Development has asked that we speak on this evening. The department held a well-attended food safety workshop on October 27th. We are pleased to be able to offer the service to help residents and local businesses with this important certification. A reminder that Main Street Sackville's Moonlight Madness event will take place on November 15th and December 6th this year. Town wishes them well with this important holiday event. We will be installing updated wayfinding signs around town as well as new industrial park signs in the near future. This will complete our 2019 signage capital project. The department manager attended the Mount Allison University Open House on October 18th and had good discussion with many students and parents. The manager attended a Climate Change Week preparation meeting in October. Climate Change Week will be held in early February this year, and we are assessing ways in which we might participate or support it. Meetings were held by Portfolio Consulting on October 28th to further work on developing our marketing plan. Next steps include meetings with individuals and public meetings. Details will be announced soon. As a follow-up to the 2018 Smart Cities application process, the town has been invited to work with a consultant provided by the federal government to access our Smart Cities capabilities and capacity for improvement. This will be an ongoing process, and it is provided to the town free of charge. And one item I would like to note, Monaris Solutions had their grand reopening on November 7th. The Deputy Mayor was in attendance bringing greetings on the Mayor's behalf and the Council's behalf. 17 years this company has been in our community, and they made a $2 million investment in the recent upgrades, and now employ out of this office 180 people. That's 30 more than what Atlantic Wholesalers employed when it closed down.
Who's counting?
I am being a former employee of Atlantic, but it was really great to see the fact of the reinvestment in our community. They spoke highly of the accessibility of the type of people that they were able to access here, and they really wanted to see our community, they found it really important that they were a part of it. And one thing personally that I noted was that the smiles on everybody's faces and the encouragement from the people that were working there, very close-knit, and it's a very high-tech. From 2002, when they first opened, I consider that to be very high-tech. It's gone leaps and bounds, and congratulations to them, and thank you for investing in Sackville.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Yeah, Monaris is a real success story, and I recall long before I was on council when the previous council had acquired a building for $1 and were being pressured to do something with it, and they kept holding out for quite a long time, it seemed, and there was all kinds of criticism, and I would say it's worked out really well, and I echo what you say about congratulating them. I mean, they're quietly employing 180 people in this town, paying taxes, being good corporate citizens. They volunteer, they provide funding. So I echo what you say. I have a couple of questions for the manager here. One thing that was, it was in the report, but the Envirothon. I knew about a group of high school students who went down to the States this past year to compete representing the high school. This is a big deal, and it's happening in Sackville. So I'm wondering if you could provide any details about this. I mean, I understand it's in a couple of years, but.
Thank you, Councillor Evans, Your Worship. Yeah, they're a pretty organized group. They had a 3-hour meeting, and it's 2 years in the future. So it's the biggest event of its kind. It's high schools from all over North America. They compete in sort of regional events, and then eventually the best ones end up at the international conference, which is being held here. And it was held here 10 years ago, so it's a lot of the same organizing people. They're very organized. They have a really great week-long event planned for the kids, and there will be, I believe, between 700 and 800 people in town, which includes the students and the chaperones and their support people for the entire week. So they're actually staying at Mount Allison, and we're going to liaison with them and try to get them to do some, well, they will be doing things in the town as well. And so it's a great event, and we're really lucky to have it here.
Yeah. And one more question about the last item with the smart cities business. Could you? I expect that as this works along, you'll have more to report. But this is pretty exciting. I went to a smart cities presentation at FCM, and you know, the potential here is really exciting. So, are you in a position to provide any more details now, or do I have to wait?
There aren't a lot of details provided at this point. It's really, it's a program that the government has enacted so that people who weren't successful in getting the grants will be able to potentially still get some capability to improve their smart city assets, their smart city capability. So basically they called us and asked a bunch of questions, and after they asked these questions, I said, well, this all sounds great. What will it cost? And he said it's free, and so I made him repeat that 3 times. So it is free. It's just, and so what we've done right now is we provided them a lot of information about where we think we are and what we think we understand about the whole smart city idea. And the next step is they're going to come back and talk to us and help us to understand what our potential is and give us access to some resources, which eventually will include some one-on-one consultation with somebody, as well as I believe it's access to a whole lot of databases and things like that that we'll be able to use. So
Great.
It's quite exciting.
Other questions on the report? Oh, Councillor Tar.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mine's not a question, it's just an added note to go with this, because not sure where I should be putting the information, but because we talked about the Envirothon and climate change and smart cities, and when I was at the Soulscape, we had many people talk about EOS and the great job they're doing with us and a lot of other communities. And so EOS is holding a solar home tour on November 24th, which is a Sunday at 1 o'clock. So there's 3 different houses for people who can go to attend and see what's going on and get more information. So, but you have to call them to get on.
Call EOS.
That's correct.
And they have a website,
They do. Yep.
Okay.
It's even linked to our website, I do believe.
No other? We shall move to public properties and facilities. Councillor Evans?
The report's on page 40. Public Works Department, along with the town subcontractors for asphalt paving and landscaping, completed all necessary work on University Avenue reconstruction during October. The street is complete, and we're pleased with the outcome of the project and thank the residents of the street for their patience. The outcome and understanding during the project, and hope they enjoyed the new look of the street. And I'm going to take this opportunity to editorialize. When we do stuff in-house, it's much less expensive, but it takes longer because staff is doing it sort of on the side. And so I think we apologize when we do it. The people, they're going to be really happy now that it's done. It seems to take a long time, but we're saving a lot of money. And I just want to make that point that that's the trade-off. The Public Works Department continued to work on the new concrete sidewalk project on Wellington Street in the month of October. The installation of the concrete sidewalk has been completed, and I believe the paving has been done as well. Some of it has, not all of it, okay. I jumped the gun. We expect to be completed by mid-November, weather dependent, and I understand we didn't get the best of all possible paving weather. Public Works continues to utilize a street sweeper to clean gutters and streets around town. This will continue throughout the fall until winter sets in. We're having spring today, so that's still good. Public Works Department completed line painting for crosswalk, center line, directional arrows at the intersection of Queens and Main Street as part of the Main Street reconstruction project. Additional line painting was also completed around town that was not completed earlier in the summer. And there is an explanation for why this took so long, and I won't get into all the details, but part of the challenge is we were trying to do it in conjunction with another municipality, and there were some delays there. But also, when you're doing work during the summer, you don't want to paint it and then dig it up. So we wait to paint some of the stuff until after it's been finished. Public Works Department installed and replaced several street signs around town that were missing or damaged. The Utility Department completed the flushing maintenance of several sections of our sanitary sewer system. See, I didn't know that we flushed the sanitary sewer system too. You learn something reading these reports. Utility Department continued to work on the evaluation of water meters that did not read properly. I happen to have one of those. They have worked throughout the month of October fixing and replacing water meters and MXU units in order to obtain proper water meter reads. Mechanics conduct their ongoing maintenance and getting ready for winter operations, but looks like we're in good shape. Engineering Department continued to provide on-site inspection of the St. James and Bennett Street reconstruction, University Avenue projects, both of which have been completed. As well, the sidewalk curb and gutter project on Bridge Street near exit 506 throughout the month of October. The asphalt restoration and landscaping should be completed. And I think that paving's been done, hasn't it? Up there? Oh, sorry, up at 506? At the side, yeah. Good. My eyes aren't deceiving me. Continued to work with Crandall Engineering on Phase 2 of the Lawrence Street Water Mitigation Project throughout the month of October. Evaluated several options with respect to utilizing the remaining money for the overall Phase 2 project. The options were presented to Council last Monday for their consideration, and a motion will be coming forward tonight. Engineering and Corporate Projects Department continue to work with Crandall and Department of Environment and Local Government with respect to the environmental impact assessment conditions for Phase 2 of the Lawrence Street Stormwater Mitigation Project, as well as the requirements of a potential additional retention pond at the quarry and other related work as part of Phase 2 of the Clean Water and Wastewater Funding. Engineering Department is working with Bowser Construction on the sanitary trunk sewer replacement project between Squire Street and Star Avenue. They have started preparation work for this project and hope to get started with the replacement within the next week. Engineering Department has continued to work with Liberty Utilities, formerly Enbridge Gas, New Brunswick, on an updated agreement between the town of Sackville and the new owners, Liberty Utilities. We are waiting for a draft agreement in order to be able to review it, and once we have the draft agreement, we'll bring this agreement forward to Council to consider at a future Council meeting. And Engineering and Public Works Department are pleased to welcome Corey Higgins as a new Heavy Equipment 2 operator effective November 18th, 2019. Tangimar Veterans Memorial Civic Center. As part of the regular building inspection throughout the year, staff noticed a few exterior doors that needed repair or replacement. This work will be carried out over the next month and a half as weather permits. This work will be carried out under the operating budget for the building. Most hockey groups are now into the regular season. There are several games per week from a variety of age groups. Check out the Civic Center schedule online or call the Civic Center for more information at 506-364-4955. The annual Titan, T-I-T-A-N, Your Skates Lady Titan Hockey Tournament will be held on November 15th to November 17th. Come out and support the Lady Titans. The annual Wayne Hicks Classic will be held from November 22nd, November 24th. Come out and support minor hockey's up-and-coming stars. And the annual Kyle Ward Invitational High School Boys Hockey Tournament will be held November 29th to December 1st. Come and show your support and watch some fast-paced hockey. Skate sharpening is available at the Civic Center during the open hours, 7 days a week. There are public skates Monday to Friday, 12 noon to 1:30, $3 for adults, $2 for seniors and children under 12, and a family only $8. There is also public skates most Sunday afternoons, but check the Civic Center ice schedule on the website for more accurate skating schedule, as times are sometimes moved to accommodate events and tournaments. And a thank you goes out to Mike Hicks and Mary Ann Oster for setting up and operating the first annual means it's going to happen again, Spook Walk at the Civic Center. Over 200 ghosts and goblins got scared, and they also got a treat on Halloween night despite the nasty weather. It's kind of like Safe Grad. You have your kids inside, safe, having fun. Municipal parks, work on the Rotary Bridge is now complete, and there'll be a grand opening on November 14th at noon at the bridge location. So come on out, get a hot chocolate, and check out this lovely new bridge. Staff are preparing all parks for winter, paying particular attention to Memorial Park before November 11th to prepare for the annual Remembrance Day ceremony. The Legion have provided a protocol for Memorial Park staff and will be lowering the flags in the park before Remembrance Day ceremony and raising them during the first note of the last post. I know I'm jumping ahead, but in the policy bylaws, we're going to be talking about flag protocols, and it's a fascinatingly detailed world that I'm completely unaware of. Staff will continue to monitor to maintain the parks in the fall on an as-needed basis, along with their duties at the Civic Center. And of course, staff has been working with our treasurer on the operating and capital budgets for 2020. And that's the report. And I have some motions.
Questions?
Unless there are questions.
Councillor Finney.
Dwayne, how many applied for that they're heavy equipment operators?
47.
All, not all from town. How many from town?
All over Canada, basically, from BC. Thank you. Sorry. So 47 applicants applied, and they range right from BC through to Newfoundland.
Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Acton, I noticed that they've done the sidewalk and the new curb going out the end of Bridge Street and around. I see somebody's already jumped the curb out there by the look of the mud where their front wheel is. They've missed the curb and come in short. I just wondered if that curb's going to be painted, because you can't even really tell it's there. It's new.
Did you damage your car?
Yeah, we're in discussions with the business there. I assume that's at the York or the Bridge Street daycare you're speaking of.
Yeah, just around the turn.
Yeah, we're in discussions with the business there to have directional arrows to help define the entryway there.
Oh, it's not the entry. It's where you, if you go out Bridge and you're going to go out towards the Altamar, where that curb ends.
Oh, yes.
Somebody has come in on the inside of the curb instead of staying on the road.
I'd have to check into that. I'm not aware of that.
Today, anyway, so
Okay.
I just thought maybe if it was painted a bright color or something, they'd see it, because it really doesn't show. It's so new.
The new sidewalk, and we won't be able to do it this year, but there's going to be a crosswalk that goes from the new sidewalk to the little island, and then from the island to the other side of, I'll call it Cattail Ridge. So next spring, when we go to do our painting, we'll be defining that crosswalk there. So that crosswalk will go across that little island, the triangle piece, which I believe you're referring to. So that will.
It's the curb, the actual curb that comes around the turn. I don't know if anybody out there has noticed it or not, but anyway, I saw it today, so.
Right. Well, you're going to take a look at it. You're going to get out and take a look at it. Okay. Any,
Yeah, I have some motions, but I just want to follow up on the point that Councillor Finney made. It'd be pretty impressive to get hired when there are 47 applications and you're deemed number one, so additional congratulations to Corey. Did you have another point you wanted to make, or should I do the motions? Sorry, I'm not running this meeting, I apologize.
Just wondering if you want me to update the on the Rotary Bridge first.
Sure, I'm prepared to do the motions, and you can speak to it at that, but I sound, sorry, John.
so go to the motion.
We're good? Okay. I move that council authorize the closure of Ford Lane and Willow Lane on Friday, November 15th, and Friday, December 6th, from approximately 5 p.m. to midnight to allow for the operation of the horse and wagon rides and to set up vendor tables during the 2 Moonlight Madness events.
Moved by Councillor Evans, seconded by Deputy Mayor Aiken. Question?
Question?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you.
I move that Council approve the Lawrence Street Stormwater Mitigation Phase 2 remaining funding option of tree mulching and reditching from the Aboiteau to the CN tracks through the industrial park, including a pumping station at the Aboiteau.
Moved by Councillor Evans, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Michaud, please.
Thank you, Worship. Just clarity on, just a follow-up, I guess, to the information you had provided last week in regards to the option 3. What would the capacity of that pump be that would be installed in regards to volume of water?
I believe, if my memory serves me right, it's just under 2,000 gallons per minute that pump's capable of pumping, but I can verify that for you.
And would that, I guess, in anything that we're aware of right now, would that suffice, I guess? Would that size assist, or?
I mean, it would definitely assist. I mean, will it keep up? It all depends on the rainstorm and the intensity and stuff. It's definitely going to be a help. You know, would I like to have an 8 or a 10-inch pump? Absolutely, but you know, the budget constraints, obviously, you have to draw the line somewhere, so.
And based on the budget now, the number that was provided last week, I think, was $211,425 as an estimate. Of that, how much is the pump? Like, what portion of that would be the pump?
I better not guess at that. I do have the actual number, and I can get that for you, rather than me just remember those numbers. I will check, and if I do have that here, I can report a little later.
Any other questions? Question on the resolution? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried.
And I have one final motion. I move that Council approve additional expenses for helical coils related to the soil conditions, end walls, and additional cross bracing on the new Rotary Bridge construction connecting the Waterfowl Park and the Lund property to be paid to Sackville General Contracting Limited in the amount of $18,481.75, HST included. And I will.
Well, moved by Councillor
Yes.
Evans, seconded by Councillor Tower, and you're asking for Mr. Acton?
Thank you, Your Worship, members of Council. Just wanted to kind of discuss this a little bit further in relationship to the numbers and kind of where this is coming from. So I'll just this is the existing Rotary Bridge, and we're pleased with the outcome. Just as a little side note, in the report, the grand opening is on the 14th at 12 noon, 12 to 1. If anybody is able to go and see that, and if you haven't visited it, I encourage you to do so. With respect to the Rotary Bridge, the original motion and discussion was had in August, if you recall that information. At that time, the Rotary Bridge, and there was lengthy discussions with the Department of Environment, Local Government, Wawa permits, and they dictated that we had to add in, some additional boardwalks. We weren't allowed to just build trails because we're in a provincially significant wetland. And therefore, as a result of that, we had to add boardwalks, and at that time, Council approved the project to Sackville General Contracting for $32,400 plus HST. So some of the project challenges that we encountered, like all projects, there are some challenges that come up with the projects, typical extras that you encounter on a project, and this one was no different. We also had to deal with the Department of Natural Resources because we had to get access off of the existing, I call it the old CNR railway, but the trail that runs from the highway to the Painted Pony. That's owned by Natural Resources, and we had to enter into an agreement and get permission to access off of that onto this trail. So we have got approval for that, so we've completed that. If you recall, at the time I discussed helicals, and helicals were all included in the original quotes by the contractors. The difficulty with it is they only allow for so much helicals, and we have to determine on site when we're doing the work how much helical we're going to need in order to hit solid ground to be able to support the bridge. So this particular line item in the quotes from the contractors, they allotted for 164 feet of, that's total footage of helical, and when they installed the helicals, we ended up using 323 feet, or 48.5 meters additional helicals in order to hit solid ground. And give you an example, 3 out of the 6 that support the center of the bridge, we were anticipating 14 feet of helical. They ended up using between 42 and 45 feet of helical. The other 3 on the other side, we anticipated again 14 feet, and they ended up using 25. So it's one of those things where you really don't know until you get out and get installing the helicals, until you can get the actual torque you need to support those weights. So as a result of that line item, which is $5,820, and it's $120 per linear meter, which was stipulated in the original quotation. The second one was the end wall. The original design allowed for the bridge and boardwalk to sit on the existing soil and mud. All of the other structures that were done in the waterfowl park ended up using head walls. So we revisited that, and we felt for longevity and to match the rest of the waterfowl park, it was we felt that necessary to put it on head walls in. It also allowed us not to be able to creep with a trail further out into that provincially significant wetland. And that was at $4,450. The additional one was cross bracing requirements. This was a little bit different when the consultant, which is a similar design to the rest of the park, but the problem with this design versus all of the other boardwalks through the park is that it's only so long, whereas all the other boardwalks are physically hundreds and hundreds of feet all connected. And because it was so short, the movement in the bridge required some additional bracing to prevent that. So we had to work with a contractor to put additional bracing in, cross bracing that wasn't part of the original design, at $1,575. And finally, the HST, and this is equated of a couple things. One, the HST for the last 3 items I just talked to you about, but I also, when I talked to council back in August, the report that I provided was $32,400 plus HST, and the motion unfortunately got $32,400 including HST. So there was obviously a difference in the HST there, and that number is the $6,636.75 for a total of $50,881.75. Now, of this, council obviously approved the $32,400. Again, that was at that time was including HST. So that requires the difference of $18,481.75, of which Councillor Evans mentioned in his motion. And at the same time, and the same information I provided, where is this additional funding coming from? The Rotary Club again funded $25,200 towards this project. The capital budget for the Lund property improvements started out at $15,000, but the additional funds there is $3,000 remaining, because there was additional trails that we had to build leading up to that bridge, which you've hopefully had a chance to walk on. And then the final one, the capital budget trail development, that full 25,000 is available for trail development for a total of $53,200 budget available, which obviously we're able to utilize to pay for the $18,481.75. So that's an update and the other thing is, because it's over $6,000, we're required that requires a council resolution, and that's why I was looking to try to get a motion to approve this and pay the contractor. Obviously, since we're talking about this, and I have a picture of this this project, it is completed. And again, these were change orders that happened as we were going through the construction, and we just received the invoice with the final changes from the contractor. Be happy to answer any questions, Your Worship.
Okay, questions on the motion? Councilor Michaud.
Thank you, Worship. Back when the boardwalk itself was being redone here a few years ago, the helicals came into that as well as being an issue, I believe. Is that correct? So as they were going through that work, they discovered that they had to go further, just to kind of in comparison, I guess, and the fact that
yeah, I believe on almost every one of the projects we've encountered some additional helicals, because again, it's so touch and go. Those 3 helicals on one side that went 42 feet, they're literally 4 meters over, and the other ones only went 25 feet. So it's extremely difficult to predict exactly where you're going to hit that solid point to get the load capacity that we're looking for. So.
Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Recreation programs, Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Your Worship. Current fall programs include the 50-plus and primetime aerobics, trailblazers, after-school program, ultimate frisbee, pickleball, aquasize, the waterfowl walking group, Lego play, a drop-in co-ed adult pickleball, pickup basketball, and I've added this, is there's also a ukulele group that meets every Friday, either at the Bill Johnson Park on Friday afternoons, or we visit special care homes or nursing homes. The community development grant application deadline is passed, and managers will be reviewing the submissions in the coming months before making a recommendation to council. The cycling without age accessible bike has been stored, it doesn't have any chains.
No.
Stored in after another successful season. The bicycle was used 36 times this year by Drew residents, 8 times by the general public, and was also used during our New Brunswick Day celebrations and the Fall Fair Parade. The Sackville Arts Wall induction ceremony took place on Sunday, October the 27th at the Sackville United Church, with approximately 150 people celebrating Ernie Sears' induction. A certified babysitting course in partnership with the Cumberland YMCA is being offered on November the 16th at the Bill Johnson Memorial Activity Center. To register, just visit www.sackville.com/programs. The 2019 Christmas Light bus tour will take place again this year on Wednesday, December the 18th. Tickets are now available here at the Town Hall for only $5 a person. The annual tree lighting ceremony at Bill Johnson Park will take place on Friday, December the 6th at 5:30. The New Year's levy will be held here in the Town Hall of course, January the 1st from 1 until 3 p.m. The 2020 Sackville Winterfest will take place February the 6th to the 9th and include the Fireman's Carnival, the Town Against Gown hockey game, fireworks, and much more. To submit an event, if anyone wishes to have an event, contact the Programs and Events Department before December the 20th. The library report, there was 1,366 people visited the library during the month of October, and the basement meeting room was used 17 times. These statistics included 14 adult programs with 40 people participating and 25 juvenile programs with 307 participants. The library will be participating in both Moonlight Madness events. And I have a motion to make, and it concerns the money for the our Bob Edgett Boys Club. But before I bring the motion forward, I'd like to ask Mr. Pride, have you received any paperwork, anything from them, receipts to show that they have purchased anything?
Thank you, Councillor. At this time, no, I haven't received anything. I did ask them to get in touch with Ms. Bickford around a building permit, and they did submit an invoice from Beal & Inch to start their, I think it was sewage work, but I haven't received any receipts that any work has actually started yet.
Based on that information, rather than bring forth the motion, I would just like to maybe ask if we could defer it for a month. That perhaps are based on what the rest of the council feels, but our motion was that we would pay them $5,000 to be used in the construction materials.
So let's just talk process if we could. So if nobody raises a motion, it can be raised next meeting. It would be my understanding. Is that correct? So if no one moves the motion, it can be put on to the next meeting. Councillor Todd?
Did they not give you a bill which they ordered the parts and now required to pay for?
Yeah, they had provided me with an invoice, but there wasn't any proof that they actually paid the invoice yet. Yeah.
Councillor Evans?
Yeah, I know we don't have a motion on the floor, so we're not debating it, but I do want to ask a question. This came up because we unanimously wanted to fund this project, and the timing is not quite right. I just a little bit concerned if we postpone it for a month, is that going to be a problem for them?
Well, or else it could be an opportunity to supply the information
Yeah.
that the council's seeking.
Okay.
So unless someone's prepared to make that motion, it will stay on the order and it can be raised at our next meeting. You're good with that? Okay, so you don't have a motion? So beside that, any questions on the report for record? Any specific question? No?
Actually, I'll make a
Councilor.
Yeah, sorry. I'll make a comment. The accessible bike is something that the town helped fund. I talked to a volunteer who took people out on this bike, and what we don't seem to appreciate, we can go outside anytime we want. For a lot of the residents at the Drew, this is a really big deal, and it was hugely rewarding for him to take these people out and have them use it. So I'm delighted that it's getting used, and I think that Councilor O'Neill suggests we get snow tires for it and maybe do it all winter, but maybe that wouldn't be a good idea.
Any other questions on the report? Hearing none, we will move to the next, which is public safety. Councilor Butcher.
Thank you. I will be looking after the fire EMO services section of this report, and it starts on page 45. Sackville Fire and Rescue responded to 14 calls for service for the month of October. That included 6 commercial fire alarms, 6 motor vehicle collisions, 1 rubbish fire, and 1 smell of gas. The department is currently at 140 calls for service at the end of October. Training sessions that took place in October were live car fire training, self-contained breathing apparatus, auto extrication, and station equipment checks to ensure all equipment remains in a state of readiness. There will be a motion coming forward this evening under fleet repair to approve the proposed purchase of a new engine turbo and turbo actuator for the 2009 Freightliner fire truck from Tower Power Sports in the amount of $8,038.50 with HST included. October was Fire Prevention Month for the province of New Brunswick, and the Fire Prevention Committee was busy going to elementary schools and various daycare facilities to hold educational sessions on fire safety with the children. Sackville Fire and Rescue held its annual steak and lobster supper. There were a large number of regular members, honorary members, associate members, and widows of deceased firefighters in attendance. The fire department would like to thank the mayor, John Hyam, the deputy mayor, Ron Aitken, and one of the public safety liaison councillors, Joyce O'Neill, for attending the event. And I am sad to say that I did not make it to the event. Mark your calendars. Sackville Fire and Rescue is holding its 7th annual Parade of Lights, as was mentioned earlier, Saturday, December 7th. The parade will consist of all of Sackville's emergency services and will depart from the fire station at 6:30. And the parade route will be advertised in the coming weeks in the Tribune Post. As always, we would like to remind all residents of Sackville to make sure they have a basic emergency kit prepared to last 72 hours in case of emergency. You need 2 liters of water per person per day, food that won't spoil, energy bars, dried foods. Remember to replace those once a year. And other items that should be included are a manual can opener, because there's nothing worse than being stuck with a can of beans and no way to open it, a flashlight, batteries, and a first aid kit. And that is the fire report.
Councillor O'Neill, please. Let's do it after. We'll come back to it. So, oh, Councillor Tower?
Yeah, just a quick question, because I've been asked, have you got your new tickets back in now?
Our truck draw tickets for 2019-2020 will be available shortly. The application to Service New Brunswick was submitted today, and we hope to hear back from them shortly, and the tickets are ready to go to print.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody buys them last minute. Want to get mine on top.
Right off the bat.
Councillor O'Neill, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. My report is on police services, page 46 on your report. October 2019 saw another marked increase of calls for service in the town of Sackville. They responded to 136 calls compared to 103 last year. They're investigating 27 property crimes, which is consistent with prior months. Sackville RCMP also attended to 8 collisions, none causing any injuries, but 2 of which were hit and run incidents. Also related to traffic, a number of traffic operations were conducted with several tickets issued. Most notably were 7 speeding tickets. And the sergeant says that they continue to receive complaints of speeding in town, and they are making some efforts to monitor the noted areas. And that's the report for the RCMP.
Any questions on the RCMP? Hearing none, we have a motion from Councillor Butcher, please.
Thank you. I move that council approve the purchase of a new engine turbo and a turbo actuator for the 2009 Freightliner fire truck from Tower Power Sports in the amount of $8,038.50, HST included.
I'll second that.
Moved by Councillor Butcher, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Policy bylaw. Councillor Butcher.
Thank you. The report can be found on page 49. The Policy and Bylaw Liaison Group met on October 15th. The staff are working on revising the Town of Sackville policy on flag protocols, as Councillor Evans alluded to earlier this evening. Presented a draft to the meeting group, and once the final revisions are done, this policy will be brought to council for review, probably in December at our special meeting of council. Bylaw number 273, a bylaw relating to the establishment of a special business improvement area levy. The Policy Bylaw Liaison Meeting Group reviewed the BIA, which is the Business Improvement Area, which imposes a levy of assessment on all business properties within the area described by bylaw number 128, a bylaw to designate and establish a business improvement area within the boundaries of the town of Sackville. This bylaw, 128, has been in effect every year since 1987, and annually a revised bylaw, a bylaw relating to the establishment of a special business improvement area levy in the town of Sackville, comes forward in order to establish the rates for the coming year. So the liaison group realized that the existing description could be updated by referring to a map as opposed to a meet and bounds description that was created originally. And we have reached out to Main Street to see if there's any interest in expanding the BIA boundaries. But given the timelines for this bylaw to receive 3 readings prior to the end of this year, the updating of the description is something we'll look to work on in 2020. And a request for a quote was called for the replacement of the engine turbo that we just approved. The quotes were received from Tower Power Sports in the amount of $8,058.50, HST included, and there was also a quote from East Coast International in the amount of $8,132.71, HST included. RFP 2019-013 CAO Recruitment Services closed on Wednesday, November 6th at 11 a.m. There were 14 RFPs picked up and 9 were received. RFPs were received from Grant Thornton, Organization Consulting Limited, Ravenhill Group, KBRS, Municipal Human Resources, Inc., SSI Consulting Solutions, Priority Personnel, Municipal World, and Waterhouse Executive Search. And that is the report.
Thank you, Councillor Butcher. Any questions on the report? No? You have a few motions?
You're sticking when are you heading out? Okay, sorry. I move that council give second reading, section by section, to bylaw number 269, Town of Sackville Dangerous or Unsightly Premises Bylaw.
Moved by Councillor Butcher. Seconded by Councillor Black.
Do you want me to read the next one?
Just a second. No, it's one motion.
It was advertised, you don't have to read it.
Lucky.
Okay. Question?
Question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
I move that council give third and final reading to bylaw number 269, Town of Sackville Dangerous or Unsightly Premises Bylaw.
Moved by Councillor Butcher, seconded by Deputy Mayor Aiken. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
I move that council appoint the mayor and policy bylaw liaison councillors as the appeal committee for bylaw number 269, dangerous or unsightly premises.
Moved by Councillor Butcher, seconded by Councillor Tower. Question? Councillor Michaud, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the committee would only consist of the liaison councillors and mayor, or where this isn't a possible appeal process, would there be others involved as well?
So the others?
Like others, I mean, regards that would have the expertise or the, on the bylaw itself?
In terms of the appeal committee?
Yeah.
The appeal committee itself. But, Mr. Bale, would you like to comment?
Yeah, when we had this bylaw reviewed and put into place through legal, there is a committee of council that has to be struck that deals with appeals. So it is a committee, and that's what the recommendation through the policy bylaw was, that it would be the policy bylaw committee. We did not put names in this, just so that when and if the mayor appoints new policy bylaw committee members, they automatically would form part of the appeal committee. There may be times when, due to, say, tearing down a property, that we have to bring information to a full council. Those people may have to exclude themselves from that because there may be information that is brought forward. So we can't have a full council hearing appeals because there may be information that has been submitted to council during the process in order to get a resolution to authorize a purchase, as an example, or something. So there are some intricacies that happen with that, but through legal, they did indicate that it has to be a committee of council as appointed, but through a resolution of council. And rather than taking a resolution every time committees change, we recommended that it be struck as the mayor and the policy bylaw committee to hear it. In a case of appeal, the individual has the right to appeal it to the committee. The bylaw officer then has his opportunity to give his information. The appeal committee can then make a decision. If the decision is still against the property owner, then they would have the right to seek judicial review within I believe it's a 14-day window after that appeal process.
Councillor Finney, please.
Michael, is this the same way as they do it in other municipalities?
Yes, the bylaw was written in accordance with the Local Governance Act dealing with dangerous and unsightly premises. So it is the same bylaw that is listed under the Local Governance Act as an option to the municipality, and we through legal had been given the advice that we should write it in our bylaw word for word rather than just referencing the Local Governance Act. So we wrote it word for word, and the same appeal process, same time limits are noted within the Local Governance Act. So it was written strictly in accordance with the Local Governance Act. No, as far as the appeal committee goes, it can be. It doesn't have to be the mayor and policy bylaw. That was the recommendation that we made. It can be anything that the council so chooses for the appeal committee, but it has to be a committee of council as set through resolution.
Other questions? Question on the motion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Councilor Butcher again?
Yeah.
Sorry. Let the record show Deputy Mayor Aiken left the room.
I move that council give first reading in name only to bylaw number 273, a bylaw relating to the establishment of a special business improvement area levy in the town of Sackville.
Moved by Councilor Butcher. Seconded by Councilor Tower. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Councilor Butcher again.
Now I get to do a lot of reading, right? I move that council give second reading, section by section, to bylaw number 273, a bylaw relating to the establishment of a special business improvement area levy in the town of Sackville. Bylaw number 273, a bylaw relating to the establishment of a special business improvement area levy in the town of Sackville. Be it enacted by the Council of the Town of Sackville under the authority vested in it by the Business Improvement Areas Act, SMB 1985 CB-10.2 as follows. 1. A special business improvement area levy in the amount of 20 cents per $100 of assessment for the year beginning January 1st, 2020, and every year thereafter is hereby imposed on all business properties within the area described in bylaw number 128, being a bylaw to designate and establish a business improvement area within boundaries of the town of Sackville. 2. Proceeds from the levy in the amount of $23,595.02 may be remitted following receipt by the town of Sackville to Main Street Redevelopment Sackville, Inc. for the purposes contained in the budget submitted by Main Street Redevelopment Sackville, Inc. and approved by Sackville Town Council on December 10th, 2018. 3. Upon passing of this bylaw, bylaw number 264 is hereby repealed.
Moved by Councillor Butcher, seconded by Councillor Tower. Councillor Michaud.
Thank you, Worship. I guess under point 2, the current budget that we're looking at right here for 2020, Council didn't approve that budget on December 10th, 2018. And the other question I have is regards to where we do this every year. It states here assessment for the year beginning January 1st, 2020, and every year thereafter. So if this is being revisited every year, I'm just wondering about the wording of that and the wording of point 2. And my other point is, I know it goes to a third reading. I was wondering if the Main Street would be providing an update on their current budget, the 2019 budget, prior to our third reading, so we can see their expenditure so far as compared to what they requested or what they council approved for a budget for last year.
Mr. Beal, speak to the wording and that question about the report on last year's budget.
Yeah, we can, as far as the wording goes, we can look into that and before third reading and just confirm. It has been the same wording every year since as long as I've been here, but we can double check that and with legal and confirm. As far as the current year status, we can reach out to them and get an update on as to how much they actually collected and what they had spent the funds on for 2019. The 2020 numbers and prior to third reading, there will be some information that will change in the whole bylaw, of course, because we get that information the end of November with our tax base. So until we get that information with our tax base, we can't give you an exact number of what that potential BIA levy will be. So when we get to third reading, which will happen the same nights we approve our own municipal budget for 2020, those numbers will be identified as exact numbers that they have the potential of receiving, providing that everybody pays the BIA levy.
Councillor Michaud, okay. Okay, Councillor Evans?
Yeah, and that's a question I asked before, and I think the answer is if we passed the law and then just applied that same bylaw every year, it would have to be for the exact same amount. And because the tax base changes, that number changes every time. That's why we do it again. We could, if we were going to, collect the $23,595.02 every year, then we wouldn't have to change it, I think. But it's just that the tax base changes every year, so that rate of, is it 20 cents per 100 changes the number. That's.
Yeah, you're correct. The item number 1 does not change, which we've under the BIA the maximum is 20 cents per 100. We are at the max and have been at the max for 25 plus years. For that number 2, the number does change, but what happens after third reading, there's also a resolution that has to happen, which basically directs the minister to issue this levy. But what we can check is to see if number 2 would be required in the bylaw. And if number 2 wasn't required in the bylaw, then we wouldn't have to redo the bylaw each year. And that bylaw could stay on the books as 20 cents per 100 unless council wished to change that number. And then we would only need the resolution, or we need to continue to do it the way we're doing it each year.
Councillor Michaud?
Where there's still kind of other information to come, I'm kind of wondering why we're doing first and second then tonight. Why wouldn't we just do first and do second and third then at the next council meeting, similar to what we've done with the unsightly premises?
Yeah, the options are, we can do first and second and then third. At any point in time, a bylaw can change its information up until third reading. So we've always done this first and second, and then the third at the December meeting when the budget is approved. We require the 3 readings. We cannot have 3 readings at one meeting, so that's why we started in November. So we could have done first reading only and then second and third at December. Or we could do first and second with third following up in December. For this one, we've always done first and second in November, made the adjustments prior to third reading, and then finalized it during the budget process.
Thank you. Allison, you could read it again in December then.
My pleasure.
Okay. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And that's okay. Deputy Mayor Aiken rejoins us, and we move to item I, personnel. Councillor Black, please.
Thank you. The personnel report can be found on page 51 of the package. The personnel liaison meeting was held on November 8th, 2019. As of the end of October, there were 34 permanent employees and 1 temporary. 2 grievances remain outstanding, call-out provisions and statutory pay. On the staffing side, we're pleased to confirm again that Corey Higgins has been hired as Heavy Equipment Operator 2 within the Public Works Department. We are pleased to welcome Corey and look forward to him joining us on November 18th. We continue to address 2 other vacancies in the Public Works Department, which we anticipate will be filled in the near future. And the recruitment process, again, as was mentioned already, for a new CAO is in progress. And that's the report.
Councillor Black?
Sweet and simple.
No motion, no questions. Move to corporate affairs. Deputy Mayor Aiken.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report appears on page 52 of the package. Work on the town's new marketing plan is underway by Portfolio following a motion in September. Consultants were in town October 28th for a variety of meetings and are now preparing for a World Cafe, which will be open to the public. They'll also be reaching out to a variety of key stakeholders in the near future for one-on-one interviews. Staff attended a variety of meetings over the month, including hosting a meeting of the Significant Climate Change Collaborative, a meeting with Service New Brunswick regarding property assessment projections and building activity for 2020, a meeting with the Organizing Committee of the 2021 Envirothon NB, the Southeast Regional Service Commission on Development Applications, and EOS Eco Energy on the town's partners for climate protection projects. Following the inaugural meeting of the Mayor's Roundtable on Climate Change on September 10th, we had a second meeting on November 6th, which provided an opportunity for the group to receive an update on recent youth forums, hear the town's 2019 capital budget plans, and possible future funding mechanisms for climate change projects, and the logistics for public forum in the new year. We want to continue to remind Sackville businesses and interested owner-operators that the registration is open for the Sackville chapter of the Chamber of Commerce of Greater Moncton, and just contact the Chamber for registration details. Sadly, in October, the town was advised of local dog testing positive for leptospirosis, which is a naturally occurring bacteria that's potentially fatal for dogs and cats. It says potentially, it's almost always fatal. The dog's owner regularly walked his dog in the waterfowl park in Swan Pond, and the town and Mount Allison have, as a result, put up signs, warning signs in the area not to let these pets drink the waters, naturally occurring puddles and ponds and so on. The bacteria will survive until we receive freezing temperatures, consistently freezing temperatures, and pet owners are encouraged to contact the veterinarians to ensure pet vaccinations are up to date, and this is a bacteria that can be vaccinated against. Staff were very pleased to be invited to the government by the government of New Brunswick to attend a national Adaptation Plenary on November 5th, 2019 in Fredericton. The plenary is an invitation-only event that brings together federal, provincial, and territorial government adaptation practitioners and national organizations from across Canada to collaborate on climate change priorities. We were invited as local practitioners and experts on climate change, and specifically to showcase the town's new naturalized stormwater retention pond during the afternoon plenary. Staff were also invited to sit as observers during the plenary meeting and to participate in the evening's adaptation trade show featuring projects across New Brunswick. So a good recognition for the work that staff did. And that's the report, Your Worship. There are no motions.
Any questions on the report? Councillor Evans.
Yeah, I wanted to say this when Mr. Burke was here, but I understand he's left the country because he's so modest. But I want to echo the Deputy Mayor. That's my experience going to conferences is the best presentations are made by staff, not by politicians. And so it makes me proud to think of our staff being at a national conference and making a presentation and being considered experts in their field. So that's a real feather in their cap. I also was at the presentation on campus in October when they had a woman very impressive who is the Director of Climate Resilience at the Intech Center on Climate Adaptation at the University of Waterloo, and she talked about the tour that she had of our retention pond and how impressed she was with both it and staff. So two more reasons why we should be proud of the staff that we have been fortunate enough to hire.
I just note to add to Councillor Evans that it wasn't only Mr. Burke, Mr. Acton was also at those sessions. So.
Did you go to Fredericton too? All right. So I'll repeat the whole thing and include the town engineer.
Okay. Point is taken. We moved to new business. There was none, and not expecting there was any news, so we go to question period. Any questions from?
I'm posing questions tonight on behalf of the Swampy Mire of my news blog, worktimes.com. And the first question is a fairly simple one. I'm just wondering what happens now after the public hearing. What's the next step in the process for the rezoning that would permit the Lafford development?
Okay. Sure. You're probably best suited to reply.
So much the same as other municipal bylaws, there will have to be 3 successful readings of both of the bylaws. There's 2 particular bylaw amendments. One is for the municipal plan and the other one is for the zoning. And council will be doing 1 or 2 readings next month and then possibly followed by a 3rd one at a following month. But no more than 2 consecutive readings can be done at the same time.
Right, so we're looking at next month for this to come forward.
For the first round of first readings.
Okay.
Yep.
And then January maybe for the last part.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. It was a central part of this meeting, and I've got to go there and ask some questions about it. I'm referring to the mayor's comments about statements made by people in emails and letters to the editor and so on. And I need context for my blog if I'm going to write a story about this, and I think I have to write a story about it since this is obviously a serious matter, if not for anybody else, for the mayor himself. So I'm going to ask 2 or 3 questions about this. And the first one is, why is it necessary for the mayor to apologize for what he sees as complete and utter fabrications, statements containing libel and slander and falsehoods in letters to the editor and emails made by individuals who are not politicians or are not officials of the town? Why is it necessary from the podium, the powerful podium you have here, to apologize to the citizens of Sackville?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I made that clear, that because we chose to not allow the public to hear some of the facts behind these situations, that transferred into impacts for our staff, and they continue in some cases to today. So I'm apologizing for my role. That's what this was all about, was that I should have been clearer for transparency when individuals go beyond free speech, when they start to say that they represent others, when they start to provide opinions, they need to be able to be held to a higher standard. I continued to hold them as a free speech standard, as an individual. And I think that was my fault and my responsibility. That's what I'm apologizing for.
Why are you choosing to do this now? I mean, these incidents go back over a period of time. Is there something that triggered this tonight?
No, I think it's the cumulative of all of those events. They have never been addressed by the authors. There's been no recanting, despite the knowledge that some things are completely incorrect and false. And the impacts on our staff are continuing. So I thought it's time for me to step up and play the role that I should play, which is pointing out, look, this should have happened earlier, and I'm apologizing for the impact that has come from me not bringing up earlier.
Next question. You may have served on the council, I'm not sure, Mayor Hyam, that received a comprehensive report from Professor Michael Fox about council and its relations to the community and its organization and so on. And a key recommendation in that report, I don't have it with me, I'm going by memory, was that the town establish a communications officer, someone trained in public relations and the media, for both internal and external communications. And I'm wondering, I mean, you're taking the blame on yourself for not responding, but I'm wondering if the town would revisit that report and perhaps consider appointing such an officer.
It could be raised in the budget. It has not at this point in time, and I'm not sure that I recall that particular report, but I do recall people speaking of it. So it's a good question. We'll ask staff whether they should bring that forward in the budget session.
Thank you. And finally, I couldn't help but notice that you mentioned that the waning months of council, that we're into the end period of the current council. And what you said sounded, you sounded very hurt, and that these statements had really gotten under your skin. I'm reminded, I think it was Harry Truman who said, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. I think it was Truman. Did what we hear tonight constitute a swan song from you as mayor? Are you planning to get out of the kitchen?
I haven't made a decision what I'm going to do now.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mayor and Council, I have Wendy Alder. I have one question. On page 36 of the bylaws, of the package, it refers to the 2019 bylaw violations being 315, and in 2018, 469. I'm just wondering if there's any reason why we've seen violations drop by 154 in a 10-month period. Is it a good thing because people are following the rules, or do we have somebody not on the ground?
I'm sorry. Mr. Beal,
Yeah, I can't give a specific answer for it at this point. A lot of it deals with the students and the type of students that we have throughout the summer. That is one impact on it. We always hire 3 students. We did this year. One of the students left early, followed by another one leaving early after that. So that may have resulted in less tickets late in August and into their final months in September. The one that had left the earliest did come back and help us out during Fall Fair weekend. I'd like to say it's a matter of people respecting the 2-hour parking, the overnight parking, and the illegal parking better, but I can't say that. The bylaw officer does continue to monitor 2-hour parking. He does continue to monitor illegal parking. As we know, we only have one at this point in time. Come December 1st, they're also begin the process of overnight parking, so their shifts will be adjusted to early mornings, weekends, in order to enforce that. So it is down this year, but if we actually compared it to 17, it would probably be closer to on target. I think 18 may have been a higher year than normal.
Okay, thank you. I do have one other comment. It's not a question, but it's a comment. As we've mentioned a few times tonight, exit 506, the sidewalk is in. And I just wanted to thank council for investing in that end, making that into town safer for the neighborhood and the kids in that area and some of our customers. And thank staff for managing the project and getting it done. That's it.
Appreciate that, because weather got in front of that and delayed it. I appreciate your patience.
You can't control your contractors, and you certainly can't control the weather.
You're
So,
more
thank you.
patient than some others, so
Yeah.
thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Moved by Councillor Tower, seconded by Councillor Finney. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
If you were Donald Trump, you would